Hi, my name is Per. I teach multimedia design at the Business Academy in Aarhus, and today I will give you an introduction to something called the grid-based design in CSS. So what is CSS grid? Well, let's assume that you have something like this. This is a wireframe, obviously, and on that wireframe you can see we have a design for a header. And we have a footer, we have a navigation and a site. But if you watch it on a big screen, then the design will appear in one way. And if you have the design on a mobile device, then your design will appear in a different way. So we will learn to make this change happen automatically, and we will do it in CSS. And in order to do it, we will use a system called CSS grid. Here you see a typical HTML page. We have a doc type and HTML, the language is English. And then we have a head section, a very traditional one, with some meta tags. And we also have a viewport, that's probably one of the most important things. And then we link to a style sheet. The style sheet will be here. And as you can see, it hasn't been made yet, so that is what we're trying to achieve in the following lesson. But in order to make the grid, you need to understand the nature of the markup, so let's have a look at it. You can see here that everything is wrapped up in a container. So the space where you want to have your grid should reside in a container. Inside that container, we have the header, we have the navigation, we have the main, the aside, and the footer. So the task right now is to design our stuff so that everything we have will be in the correct places. Also note that my markup is in semantic markup. So the header is a header tag and not a div. If you wanted to, of course, you could have a div here, but the code is much better if you have a semantic markup. So that's a very good idea for you to have that. Below the header, we have this navigation, and inside the navigation, we have a list. So this is also very typical. And if we fold out everything here, you can see that here we have all of the HTML. And basically what you see here is what we are going to style in the following lesson. Okay, the first thing we need to style here on the right side, you see that we do have a container. So the container is the thing that should act as a grid. So if we address the class, the dot is a class, container, and we have some curly brackets here, then we should write that it should display as a grid. And in order for the grid to appear, we need some grid areas. Later on, we will place these areas right here, but for now, we'll have to assign the elements to the grid so that we can create the areas later on. So first of all, we need to assign the elements so that each element has an area. And that's what we do here. First of all, we do have on the right side, you see we have a header. So if we go to our text here, you can see this is the header. So obviously we want to give that one an area. So if we write header here, that's just the name of the tag. And here we assume that you only have one thing called a header. If not, you'll have to use classes or IDs. But in this case, we just write grid area, and we will call this one header and a semicolon. And then we continue with the other ones, so we need to style the nav. And we'll give that one a grid area too. We could call it menu, just to be creative. And then we have the main part of the HTML. That's where you place all your article and stuff. We could call that one main. And then we have a ID, and this is just to demonstrate that you can also target an ID. So let's see if I can find it. Here it is. That's my site here. This one has an ID and the ID is right. So now you can see how we address an ID. So if we go to this one, we should write an hash and then we give it the ID, and that is right. And we will do it here. And we'll also assign a grid area here. And I'll call it right. Yes, that's one, right? And let's get a little bit of space over this thing. And then the only thing we need to address is the footer. So again, we could be lazy here. Copy paste. Footer here. And then don't forget to write footer. So by now we have defined a few grid areas, and as soon as the grid areas are defined, you can actually put them to use. So right now we will try to construct our grid. So if we go to the header, the container tag, and to the next line here, we could define grid template areas. And after the colon, you can simply put your areas in quotation marks. And for each line of your design, you will add a word. So if we say that the header should be, let's say 6 columns, and I want to have it a little bit like that. That's 4, 5, 6. And probably we should just reduce the size a little bit so that everything fits on a line. Then it's more easy to watch. But here we have the header section. And this means that we have a grid of 6 columns, so to speak. And in this case, everything will be the header, so the header will fill out the entire top space, as it was on this sketch over here on the big screen. So what we are doing right now is actually the big screen design. So let's find a quotation mark and continue. As you can see on the sketch here, we want to have something where the nav goes down, the main stays in the middle, the aside is here, and the footer is here. So in order to emulate that, we will write menu and menu. So by now the menu will have 2 sections. Then we will write main and main, and right and right. In this case, the menu will have 2 parts of the space available. The main will have 2 parts of the space available, and the right will have 2 parts of the space available. In the bottom, line we write menu, menu, and then we'll just have footer for the rest of the spaces that we have. So I'll just write footer and footer and footer and footer. So by now we have assigned the different areas to the container. We have created a grid system, and by now you should have something along the lines of the design that I showed you during the beginning of this lesson. So by now I will change to the bigger screen, as you see it here. I click on the lightning, and now you can see that our design begins to come alive. We have a header, we have the menu where we want it to be, and we have the footer. So everything seems to be all right by now. Probably you remember that the plan we had was to have a design that would look in one way on a big screen and in another way on a mobile phone. So what we still need to do is actually to create the mobile version of your design. So let's see how that is done. The last part of our work is to add the responsive rules, and here you see them. First of all, I add a window-only screen rule and define the max width of the device to 600 pixels. Then everything above that size will actually have the stars that we see above here. So the max width will define the size of some mobile device. The only thing we have to change is the container. Of course, it should still display as a grid. And then we have the grid template areas. And this is where the change happens, because you can see here, instead of writing header 6 or 5 or 6 times or whatever it is, we write it one time. And then you will actually have a grid where you can have the menu below the header, the main below the menu, and so on. And then we will get a design that looks like this. Here you see it. And you can see that the header is here, the menu is here, the main is here, the right is here, and the footer is here. And if we try to resize the browser, then you can see that our other design comes up. So this concludes our exercise today. Okay guys, this is it. Now we have made a design that looks in one way on the big screen and in another way on a mobile device. When you begin to optimize your code, it's a good idea to use the mobile first approach, and that is make it look very good on a mobile. Then you continue to a larger and a larger and a larger screen until we end with a big screen. So that was the introduction for today about CSS Grid. Good luck in your grid workings.